When it comes to getting high in Portal 2, there's one tried and true method that has been set in stone since the very first game. Speedy thing goes in, speedy thing comes out. Okay, maybe there's technically another method, but while this popular line remains true, there have been other ways to gain height that are a bit more unconventional than your everyday fling. One of which also uses portals, but not necessarily how you'd expect them to be used. Picture this situation. You're standing in your portal looking around when eventually you see a portal surface off in the distance. You shoot your portal to try to make it there, but then you get pushed by an unknown force and end up falling to the floor. Congrats, you just did a re-portal! When you stand inside of your portal and then shoot the opposite color of the one you're standing in, the game forces you out with 200 units of velocity. This is an intended mechanic in order to prevent cheesing puzzles by just portaling wherever you want, even though it's still pretty easy to bypass by just holding backwards. Now, if you want to gain height with re-portals, the process is pretty simple. You can fall into a floor portal, and while falling, you can shoot said floor portal on the wall as you are passing through it, effectively giving you the 200 velocity boost as you exit. Now, you just need to place the portal you just shot back onto the floor in order to catch yourself and maintain your height. Then, you can just repeat the process in order to gain as much height as you want. Theoretically. While this is a simple method to gain height on paper, it has two pretty important drawbacks. One of which is that, on modern builds of the game, you can only re-portal off of wall and ceiling surfaces. Floor-only re-portaling does not exist unless you downgrade to the release build of the game, specifically known as build 4554. The second drawback, of course, comes back to that one funny line, speedy thing goes in, speedy thing comes out. The more height you gain, the faster you will fall back down into your portal, making the timing for the re-portal increasingly more and more precise. In older speedruns, the map Pit Flings was somewhat notorious for time loss because its main route consisted of 3 back-to-back-to-back re-portals. This might not sound like anything too crazy, but I urge you to open the game and actually try it. It's deceptively difficult. So while you could technically just continue to gain height, the risk of human error can end it very easily. Let's take a step back for a moment and look at how re-portals function again. We understand that when we shoot our portal, we get pushed out with a boost in velocity. But what if we just never get pushed out? What if we get stuck in place and continue shooting? Actually, if this happens, our velocity continually increases. Now the tricky part about this is actually getting stuck in the first place. With cheats or abusing saving and loading, this is very easy. But when sticking to the confines of the main speedrun category's rule set, those are off the table. Instead, one method of getting stuck, in simple terms, is abusing faulty collision. A really easy example of this can be shown in the map Bomb Flings. If you shoot a portal under the edge of this wall, you're able to see the underside of it. The collision of it is a bit strange. Walking into it in some parts gets you stuck in place. We can use this collision in order to get stuck inside the wall, simply by just pressing into it and reshooting our portal. Boom! Just like that, you're in the wall. Temporarily. The game eventually wakes up and realizes that you're a tiny bit stuck and will force you out after roughly 2 seconds. So to take advantage of this, when we reshoot the portal to get stuck, the goal is to just build as much speed as possible by re-portaling over and over again before getting forced out. This is known as the super re-portal. Now this is an example of getting stuck in a wall. For a floor, however, it's a similar concept. Whenever you shoot a portal on the bottom of a wall surface, it produces a similar result to the underside of the edge in Bomb Flings, having the portal just barely clip into the floor. When I say barely, I mean that this is practically never noticeable in regular gameplay. But if you look downwards at around angle 63 on the y-axis, walk backwards, then shoot your other portal on the floor, you get stuck. Then, we just repeat the same steps that we saw on Bomb Flings onto the floor, and well, there you have it. The super re-portal, but for vertical. Now this can get you pretty high up, but you're still held back by the fact that the game forces you out of being stuck. If you remember earlier when we got stuck inside the wall by saving and loading, You'll notice that we could continue building speed without being forced out of the wall. This is actually possible to do without cheats or breaking the rules, but the situation required to do so is incredibly specific. But first, let's talk hitboxes. In Portal 2, your character has two boxes, one being QFizz, dealing with general interactions like map geometry, and VFizz, dealing with physics objects like props. They're typically overlaid on top of each other, and they don't necessarily enjoy being separated that much. The game usually tries to correct them by repositioning them back together. Because of this, if we manage to move the VFizz hitbox but not the other, maybe through a trick called PPD for example, the game can just straight up teleport you to it in order to keep them together. Coming back to super reportals again, the main first step is to get stuck. It's probably way more detailed than this, but in maps like Conversion Intro and 3Gels, there are railings you can get stuck on with incredibly precise setups that end up messing with your hitboxes. Specifically, walking into your portal and onto the strange collision of the railing at roughly angles -28 or 118 gets your QFizz box stuck in place while the VFizz is falling. Now remember what happens when the two boxes get separated? If you shoot your portal while your VFizz hitbox is fallen, your player teleports to it in order to realign them, getting you stuck into the floor for good. Now, you can shoot as many portals as you like without the worry of being forced out. Let's take a break from portals and take a look at something more broken. Props are a core aspect in these puzzles and in Valve games in general, but there are also,
No rules, no boundaries. He doesn't flinch at torture, human trafficking, or genocide. He's not loyal to a flag or a country or any set of ideals. He trades blood for money. He's your new best friend.
You know, actually they're fine, don't worry about it. Luckily, we can use them in several ways to gain height, one of which is the stepping stool method. You can take a cube, jump on some blue gel, then drop the cube at the peak of your height and just sort of press into it. You'll be pushed up by the cube, causing you to have more height, which makes you bounce higher once you fall back down on the blue gel. So it's just an infinite height generator, but just time consuming, and the height you get from the cube can vary. Oh, sorry, wrong floor. But while we're here, here's prop elevators. Prop elevators are a bit strange because we don't know 100% why it works, but the idea is this. When you grab a prop, you're unable to interact with it, probably to avoid annoying bumping and getting caught on walls and whatnot.
No rules, no boundaries.
However, if you grab it while pushing against a wall, preferably a corner, you can press into it for a short period of time. Jumping while doing this push results in lots of height in your jump. There's even a more intense version of it which gives you way more height than expected, but it has a very small chance of happening. So if you're lucky, you could get a crazy amount of height, but it's not usually expected. And I mean, like 95% of the time this is fine at scaling basic walls, but you're not gonna go to the moon or anything with this. Another method is the prop fly. In other games like Half-Life 2 for example, in older versions, you can prop fly by standing on a prop and repeatedly jumping and spamming grab in order to gain height. In Portal 2 however, if you stand on a prop and try grabbing it, the game refuses to give it to you. And even if we jump and grab it, the cube will just be held in front of us rather than beneath us. The solution? 2 props. If you can't grab the one you're standing on, why not grab one under it? The prop that you grab begins getting pulled towards you, pushing the one you're standing on with it. This ends up pushing you upwards, but unfortunately the grab ends up breaking because the cube is too far away from you. You kind of have to be a little lucky because props are pretty random, but it's possible to re-grab the bottom cube after the grab breaks and continue the fly. This method can theoretically work infinitely, but unfortunately the general nature of props are very inconsistent, and so there's no guarantee of that happening. Speaking of props flying, you can create a turret rocket ship in turret sabotage with 2 defective turrets. Naturally, for whatever reason, defective turrets repel each other when you put them near one another. Because of this, with a pretty specific setup, if you stand on one turret while holding another and then look down just right, you'll begin to fly. And honestly, there aren't many downsides in terms of gaining height to do this. The only thing stopping you is the ceiling and getting a hold of 2 defective turrets. This one gets an A. Finally, the most Valve way of gaining height with props. If you've ever played Garry's Mod or any Valve game in general, you've probably seen a prop get stuck in a door or in the wall somehow and see the chaos unfold. In this case, getting a cube stuck in a door and jumping on it can send you flying. It's simple, but it's unfortunately also insanely random, so use at your own discretion. Sometimes, trying to figure out how to go up can be performed through methods that might seem counterintuitive at first. In this example, let's take a look at 2 maps, Crazy Box and 3 Gels. These 2 maps contain very specific geometry that, when pressed into, gets you stuck in place, but not necessarily like how we saw earlier. In this case, while we press into this geometry, you'll notice that our velocity increases very rapidly. Essentially, the game thinks that we're falling, and so it gives us the velocity you'd normally get. However, the weird geometry keeps us stuck in place. If we let go of whatever key is keeping us stuck, all the built-up momentum from falling will be released. This is called the stuck launch. Now, in order to prevent shattering every bone in your legs, there exists one very important key feature in these maps. Blue gel, the one that goes boing. You can probably see where this is going, but there are various ways to take said blue gel and get some under where the stuck launch is performed. Once everything is in place, and with the right amount of velocity, performing a stuck launch now looks like this. This is why I love this game. Like, how cool does that look? The blue gel perfectly utilizes the built-up momentum to send you to the stars. But what if I told you that there's one more method out there? A method so easy that literally anybody can do it, and the height you get from it can send you to the moon. Chapter 8 introduces a brand new puzzle element to the Portal series, the Excursion funnels. Using anti-gravity, these funnels are usually meant to carry other elements like props, gel, and often yourself in order to complete the puzzles. However, a new mechanic introduces new glitches. On release day, a glitch regarding these excursion funnels was found, and has since been dubbed the crouch fly glitch. There's 2 variations of this, but I'm going to specifically cover standing CFG. Behind the scenes, there's a counter keeping track of when a player enters a funnel. 1 meaning the player is in a funnel, and 0 meaning they're not. Your player also has 2 VFIS models, one for standing and one for crouching. Normally, if you crouch and uncrouch while in a funnel, your crouching model disappears and your standing model takes its place. The game recognizes this and updates the counter accordingly as the models switch between one another, always ending up at 1 if you're in the funnel. However, if we enter a funnel but are fully stopped and repeat this process, the model essentially falls asleep and the game doesn't detect your other model leaving the funnel during the switch, thus adding another value to the counter. Then, if we leave the funnel, the counter will decrease down to 1, tricking the game into thinking we are still in the funnel. To simply put it, enter a funnel at 0 velocity, crouch, uncrouch, then just walk out. Now, because of the anti-gravity properties of funnels, if we simply jump, this happens. That's right, infinite height with almost no effort. It's perfect. Kinda. It can even be preserved in between levels. It is the way to gain height. And on that note, that's all I've wanted to show for now. I've got somewhere special to be, but thanks for sticking around. See ya.